Okay, let's dive in. Picture Ouagadougou. That heat, you can almost feel it clinging to everything.
Hmm.
And it felt really, well, symbolic, kind of mirroring the intense geopolitical pressure cooker President Ibrahim Traoré found himself in.
Absolutely. And the sources you pulled together really lay this out. Traoré's moves, kicking out the French forces.
Right.
The pushback against, let's say, traditional Western economic leverage, that very determined step towards real sovereignty.
Right.
These weren't just, internal decisions.
No, definitely not.
They immediately echoed much wider, essentially drawing a line in the sand for some Western powers.
Exactly. And what's really compelling about the material you've shared is how it zooms right in on this specific moment, this escalation in Burkina Faso. We're going to unpack how critical these events actually became.
Right.
Because the arrival of those American F-15E Strike Eagles, these are serious aircraft, multi-role
A
fighters.
real show of force.
Designed for air combat ground strikes, a true projection of power. And their stated mission, neutralize a threat to regional stability. Well, that spoke volumes, didn't it?
It certainly did. And Traoré's response, as your sources detail, was anything but backing down.
Not at all.
His declaration, "We fight, we will not kneel," that wasn't just talk. It really set the stage for a potential clash.
Yeah.
Signaled a deep refusal to yield.
Okay, now let's shift scenes. Thousands of miles away, Moscow. Imagine President Putin watching these American movements on satellite feeds. His interpretation, according to the sources, wasn't just about regional stability. He saw something, well, much more specific.
A decapitation strike, that's the term used, aimed directly at Traoré.
What's your take on why he jumped to that conclusion?
Well, this is where the historical context, which the sources bring up, becomes so important. It seems Putin's thinking is heavily influenced by the past.
Like what, specifically?
Like the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. The sources highlight this isn't just some random historical fact for him.
Oh, okay.
It feels like a recurring theme in how the Kremlin views Western actions in Africa. This idea that independent leaders often get undermined.
Right.
So that decapitation strike idea probably fits right into that long-held suspicion. It reinforces a narrative, maybe, of needing to stop history repeating itself.
That makes a lot of sense. It frames the current event within a much larger, older story. Meanwhile, back in Ouagadougou, while these, high-level chess moves are happening, the sources also give us this really powerful ground-level view. Ordinary people on the streets holding signs they've painted themselves.
Traoré is our son, things like that.
Exactly. Declarations of solidarity. And then there's that image of the old woman, Miriam, praying.
Her story, too. Her village burned by mercenaries under some foreign flag in the past.
It just brings home the personal stakes, doesn't it? This isn't abstract geopolitics for people like her.
Absolutely not. Miriam's experience, it's not isolated. It really points to that deep well of history, those grievances, and this powerful desire for genuine self-determination. That's likely what's fueling a lot of the public support for Traoré's stance.
It's rooted in lived realities.
Exactly, a desire for something different.
Then comes that moment, just incredibly tense, as laid out in the material. The sound of jets approaching, roaring over Ouagadougou.
You can imagine the fear.
Totally. And in the middle of this, Traoré is writing a letter to his mother.
Such a human detail.
Isn't it? A personal act right when he's facing this massive potential threat. And his words, "If they take me, know this. I stood for something. I stood for us." It's just raw, powerful.
That detail, the letter, it's incredibly striking. It cuts right through all the strategic talk and reminds you of the human costs and the sheer courage involved in these crises.
Yeah.
It stays with you.
And then something almost unbelievable happens. That jet noise, it starts to fade. An unexpected quiet falls.
And then the phone rings.
An emergency line, bringing news that sounds almost impossible. The American jets, they've turned back.
Turned back. Just like that.
Why? And the sources give the reason they were intercepted by Russian Su-35 fighters operating out of Mali. Now, what's the significance of that? The Mali connection.
That's absolutely crucial. The fact that Russian jets, based in Mali, could project force effectively over Niger airspace
Right.
and intercept advanced American fighters, that signals a really significant and maybe rapid shift in the whole regional security setup.
It suggests a bigger Russian footprint.
A bigger footprint, more influence in the Sahel, definitely, and the ability to challenge what was, until then, pretty much uncontested American air presence. This is, like the sources stress, the first direct challenge to U.S. air dominance over Africa since the Cold War, a potential turning point.
Wow. So a real standoff. High stakes. In the skies above Niger, as the materialist describes it, American pilots, Russian pilots, face to face, essentially.
Tense moment.
But the Russian resolve, according to these sources, was firm. The material specifically notes, this wasn't Syria, this was Africa, and they would not back down. What's the message there, do you think?
That statement, it's loaded. It suggests they're deliberately drawing a new line, saying maybe that the rules of engagement from other places, like Syria, don't apply here.
A different game board.
Exactly. It implies a stronger commitment, maybe a greater willingness to risk direct confrontation to protect their interests and allies in Africa.
And the immediate result, Washington's order. Disengage, return to base.
Just like that. Crisis averted, for the moment.
But the world, as the sources put it, kind of tilted on its axis right then.
Well, the news headline certainly reflected that shift immediately. American jets back down.
Burkina Faso holds its ground.
It instantly created this narrative, didn't it? David and Goliath, almost. Burkina Faso, with Russian backing, standing firm against what looked like immense pressure. A huge symbolic win.
Then comes the call. A satellite phone. Traoré, probably still reeling, hears President Putin.
And the message is simple. You are not alone.
Concise, but incredibly potent.
What was Putin aiming for with just that phrase, do you think?
Well, beyond just reassuring Traoré in that moment, it likely serves several goals. It reinforces Russia as a partner you can count on, someone willing to offer real, tangible support.
Not just words.
Right. And it also sends a clear signal to other African leaders perhaps thinking about similar paths, greater independence, suggesting, hey, Moscow could be a powerful ally for you too.
Traoré's reaction, the sources say, was deeply emotional, which is understandable, given he was likely preparing for the worst.
Absolutely.
Back in Burkina Faso itself, the news just ignites celebration. People pouring into the streets, relief, tears even. And Miriam, the elderly woman we mentioned, her observation, they wanted to break him, but he is iron. What does that tell us about how Traoré is seen by his people, or at least some of them? That quote really captures it, doesn't it? That sense of resilience, that unwavering strength people see in him. It suggests that facing down this perceived threat and doing it defiantly only cemented his image as a strong leader protecting his nation from powerful outsiders.
And globally, the reactions, as you'd expect, were split right down the middle based on the sources.
Sharply divided, yeah.
Western media mostly framed it as Russian aggression, dangerous interference.
Standard framing, perhaps.
While African media often saw it very differently. A new dawn for African sovereignty, hailing Traoré, the Lion of West Africa. Quite the contrast.
It's a stark contrast, and it really highlights the battle for narratives, doesn't it? How different geopolitical viewpoints and historical experiences lead to fundamentally different interpretations of the same event.
Even the words used.
Exactly. Terms like aggression, interference, their meaning becomes contested, framed to fit certain interests. It shows the global information landscape we're in.
And Traoré himself. The sources suggest he was profoundly changed by all this. A shift in his demeanor is described.
More humility.
Yeah, greater humility, focusing on connecting with people directly visiting hospitals, schools, farms. Like, the weight of it all settled on him differently.
That kind of transformation, facing down what felt like an existential threat and coming out with strong backing, it likely deepened his bond with the population. His legitimacy, his symbolic weight, arguably grew significantly.
Fast forward a few months. The African Union Summit. Traoré arrives, and the reception is described as heroic. A long-standing ovation.
A powerful moment.
His speech apparently really hit home the core message, African sovereignty, African dignity, that these are worth far more than just natural resources.
That's a potent theme right now across the continent.
He said, I will not let our continent remain a playground for foreign powers who only see us as resources, not people. We are more than diamonds and oil. We are history. We are dignity. We are Africa. That feels significant.
Oh, absolutely. That quote gets right to the heart of this growing feeling across Africa rejecting those old dependencies, asserting self-determination. The ovation suggests many leaders there shared that desire for more autonomy, more respect internationally. It was a galvanizing speech.
Even Putin, watching remotely in Moscow, reportedly raised a quiet toast to the young lion.
A small detail, but telling.
It speaks volumes, right? It suggests he recognized Traoré's symbolic impact, the potential for these actions to shift things more broadly, an acknowledgement, maybe, of a challenge to the way things were.
A nod to a perceived disruptor.
And this whole narrative, it's even reached the kids in Burkina Faso. The sources mention children telling stories now about jets turned away by courage, by protection.
Mhm.
They might not get the geopolitics, the F-15s versus Su-35s, but they grasp the core story. A hero defended them.
And that's how these events become part of the national story, isn't it?
Yeah.
It moves beyond politics into culture, into identity, shaping how future generations see their country and its place.
Traoré's leadership since then, according to the material, seems guided by this experience. Principles like partnership, but not domination. Aid, but not dependency.
Always prioritizing his people's needs over outside pressures.
It all seems to flow from that critical moment, facing a major threat, finding unexpected support.
It suggests a very deliberate, principled path forward, really trying to carve out genuine sovereignty, breaking free from those older patterns of influence.
So looking back at everything we've discussed from these sources, it paints this really compelling picture. A young African leader takes a stand, faces a dramatic confrontation, and there's this surprising intervention. It really throws the legacy of colonialism and the strength of West African resilience into sharp relief.
Precisely. We've seen how this one episode, detailed so well in your sources, kind of acts as a snapshot of these bigger global power shifts and this rising assertiveness from nations wanting more say in their own future. Hopefully, tracing these threads has given you, our listener, some real insight into the complex forces at play.
And that really brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. Thinking about everything we've unpacked from this material, what are the long-term consequences of this moment for African agency, for Africa's voice on the world stage? How might this specific event, this averted confrontation, this unexpected intervention, shape the future relationships between the big global powers and the African continent going forward? Something significant to ponder.